Hey everyone, this is Chris, your friendly neighborhood Minnesota comic geek, back with another video. Today discussing the question, why do I buy multiple copies of the same comic book? And more importantly, why do you buy multiple copies of the same comic book? So before I get started though, I would ask that if you enjoy this type of comic book related content, please give the video a thumbs up. Hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos. And if you enjoy talking comics, then comment below. All right, let's get into it. This question, why do I buy multiple copies of the same comic book, was kind of proposed via comment on one of my comic book haul videos by the user James Wynn, I think is how you pronounce the last name. But he asked, he was just curious, why do I buy multiple copies of the same comic? Obviously in the video I probably mentioned that I already had certain copies that I had picked up, and so I thought, what a great topic for a video. And while I kind of knew all these reasons that I had, or have been buying multiple copies over the years of my collecting, had these ideas or reasons in the back of my head, I'd never really made a list and put them all down on paper as to, the various factors of why I might buy some. Starting with the first reason, it comes down to happens to affect kind of newer comic books that are being released monthly. I started years ago buying multiple copies of the same issue to have, one copy for reading and keeping one copy, bagged and boarded and in good condition that I wouldn't read. I started doing that, and it helps, if you feel like you're spending, you're getting a better deal or whatever when you get, same issue, but, different covers, different variant covers, like these Powers of X issue 4, getting the cover A and then getting the variant cover. So, that helps to kind of justify that. But like I said, with the newer comics that are released, paying full covers, like I said, is to have a reader copy and a clean, pristine copy. All right, the next reason are kind of twofold. It's to replace bad condition copies, low grade copies from my childhood, like these Astonishing X-Men 4 copies. Like, these are this issue, this run of Astonishing X-Men is probably one of my favorite runs of, the Uncanny X-Men series. And it's a copy, it's a series of books and issues that I read through a lot and looked through a lot. And so the copy that I originally bought, in my childhood, just gets damaged, worn, gets tons of spine ticks. So, just finding replacement copies to get the same book in a better condition. That's for, like, these ones are for nostalgic purposes, whereas like these ones, these Wolverine number 17s, I probably found this one that has just a bunch of damage, creases, color breaks, damage in the cover. I probably bought this one at a convention, just in the dollar, found it in the dollar bin, like in rough shape. And so over the years, just coming across them, trying to just upgrade the copy with a better condition copy. The classic John Byrne cover here. Those are like the two, same reason, but for different purposes, replacing nostalgia books and replacing just run issue books with better copies. All right, the next reason, on a book that I love or book done by a specific artist, trying to get all of the variant covers for a specific issue. Case in point, the Battle Chasers number 10. I love Joe Madureira. I loved his original Battle Chasers series when he did it back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, and was ecstatic when it was coming back with a different artist, but just continuing the series. So with issue 10 here, they put out, how many different variant covers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different covers for just this issue alone. And yeah, I had to get them, even multiple copies of a couple of them. Getting the J. Scott Campbell, multiple copies of the multiple copies, and the Joe Madureira cover, getting multiple copies of that. But that's where there are a lot of people that collect variant covers, so they might buy, you know, multiple copies of the same issue just to have the different covers. I could see like creating some sort of like wall piece with all these covers mounted, just to have them all together and displayed together. You know, creates a nice little story. All right, the next reason is buying multiple copies of the same issue for the future potential investment aspect. Hoping to buy, you know, an issue of a comic in the hopes that it might someday in the future increase in value. You know, these Savage Wolverines. I love Joe Madureira, as I've already said. I wasn't like bummed to buy this many copies, but just want to state I didn't buy all of these at cover price. A lot of these books were found in the dollar bins, so I may have bought one at full cover price and then got these other ones in the dollar bins, because like this series, like right now and even when it came out, wasn't overly hyped. It was just kind of run-of-the-mill. Just again, it's the hopes that, you know, maybe one day there's a Wolverine and Spider-Man movie and these old copies will find new life and find new value. Jim Lee is another favorite artist, so I loved his Divine Right series, so a lot of his books have found value over time. So anytime I come across a Divine Right comic in the dollar bins, I almost always snap it up. I definitely did not pay $20 for this, but you know, this was definitely discounted. But yeah, just, you know, I buy these in the hopes that they might one day hold value. While like these stack, the Divine Right and the Savage Wolverine, really don't have like increased value above cover price. One book and one kind of set of books that I, for the longest time, anytime at conventions or at comic shops, digging through the dollar bins, whenever I came across X-Men #1, the Jim Lee 1991 8 million copy issue, I would buy it just because this particular issue holds such nostalgic value for me beyond its significance in comic history. It was really the main book that made me love the X-Men team, the characters, the comic for life. Don't know if I have my original X-Men #1. I know the first time I saw it, I borrowed it from a friend's brother back in like 3rd or 4th grade, and I just poured over the panels and the pages, just loving the artwork, loving Jim Lee's style, his art, everything about it. At the time, when I was a kid, I could never find this issue just because it was, I think, an immediate wall book. So it was way more expensive than I could afford, being a kid with limited allowance money. When I got older and had money, like by that time in my late teens, early 20s, this book had become so devalued because of the high print run. All these copies that I'm going to show were all $1 buys. $1 bin buys. Two of the Magneto covers. I got three of the this cover. I got one of this one. I couldn't find the Colossus, Rogue, Gambit, and Psylocke cover. I'm pretty sure I have that version. But even the deluxe edition one, I've got 4 copies of this one. You know, even this one, like I said, I got this one at Half Price Books for 75 cents. Like I said, anytime I came across this, I bought it. I buy it. Even like for the longest time, I often came across issues 1, 2, and 3, which is a great little 3-issue story arc run to buy and read. It's fantastic. Like I said, I bought all these copies for $1 or less even, you know, just because they were so prevalent in the dollar bins. And, you know, now these books, you know, in high grade, you know, are actually commanding a decent value now. With the X-Men coming to the MCU, they're gonna command more and more value. So, you know, it was a worthwhile investment over the long haul to get all these multiple copies of X-Men #1. All right, the next reason for buying multiple copies is in reaction to the proliferation of graded comic books over the last, I don't know, 2 decades, especially now more than ever, where graded comics command such a higher premium for various comic books. If you get the right ones graded, even modern books can command a higher value. I will now buy specific books with the intent to potentially one day submit for grading. You know, these books here, the Uncanny X-Men 342 variants, the Witchblade #1s, you know, these are good modern books that when graded, and if in high grade, specifically 9.8, can command a higher value. So it's buying with the intention to add future value to my collection beyond just the bulk number of comics I own. Trying to buy strategic comics that I can afford. Can't afford, you know, the Silver Age, Golden Age books. Like, I just can't afford those. So it's trying to find moderate value, like priced books that when graded can command a higher price. These 3 Witchblades happen to get them all for 20 bucks each. It's just weird because these 3 probably were bought at different times over the last, you know, decade and a half, and just it's always been about 20 bucks for a raw copy of Witchblade 1. Kind of a twofold with the graded aspect is that also having multiple copies, you can submit the best quality one for grading and have it graded and protected, and still have a reader copy that maybe you don't submit for grading, and just you have you know, the protected one that, you know, you can sell down the road if you want, and have an original copy to read and look through. Multiple reasons for buying these types of books and having multiple copies of these types of books. All right, the next reason I buy certain copies and multiple copies of certain books are the books that I consider good story books. Books that I buy with the intent that if I have a family member or friend who is looking for just a good comic to read, just that they will enjoy the story. They're not like me who judges the book primarily on the art. They just want a good comic book story. So I will buy, multiple copies of certain comic books. Like the I Hate Fairyland book is for the non superhero type person who wants to read a comic book and just needs a good story. The I Hate Fairyland are a great book for an older teen or an adult who just wants a wacky adventure. Just great story all around. The other example here, anytime I come across, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the Oz adaptation books that Scotty Young did years ago now, I will buy. They are great. These are great books to buy and give to children. They are great comic book adaptations of the Oz novels by L. Frank Baum. Case in point, several years ago now, when my niece was, I think, 8 or 9 years old, she was still into comic books. So for Christmas, I gave her one copy of each trade of the Scotty Young Oz adaptations. I think there's 6 or 7, series that he did. Gave her as a Christmas present, a copy of each trade, just because like I said, these ones are great stories, obviously based on the Oz books, classic literature adapted to comic book form. But having multiple copies, I had multiple copies of each of the Oz books, so I was able to just pick them off my shelf and give them to her for Christmas and still have my original copies. But yeah, there's tons of single issue comics that are standalone great stories that anytime I come across them, I will buy and hold on to potentially give to a friend or family member. And I plan on doing videos on a lot of those books because they're great stories and they deserve love, even though they're not necessarily key issue books. All right, the last reason I buy multiple copies of the same comic book is buying copies because I love the artist drawing the book or the artist drawing just the cover, and it kind of mixes in with nostalgic reasons too. A lot of the books that I've shown already have nostalgic value, but I also love the artists on the books. Some of them were from my childhood. Case in point, anytime I come across X Factor number 92, I will buy it because it's often in the dollar bin, so it's only $1. And this is a book that I immediately gravitated towards when I was a kid because of Joe Quesada's artwork. His X Factor run is one of my all-time favorite run of issues because they're X-Men adjacent characters, and his artwork is just absolutely amazing and just was so unique to that era of comics. You transition or fast forward, a decade or two, and bought multiple copies of this Wolverine Origins issue number 5 that features Joe Quesada's Alphonse Mucha Art Nouveau homage cover. These are technically 3 different books or three different variants, so they're not the exact same. Like, this is just the standard black and white. This is the Comic-Con 2006 version. This is the the regular cover version. I just absolutely love this cover. It is such an underrated Joe Quesada cover. There's no key significance to the book. It's just a book that I will always find again in the dollar bin, and I will buy it because, like I said, I just love the cover, love his artwork. You know, books like the New Ultimates #1, the Frank Cho volume. You know, I bought multiple copies of this because part of buying the same issue by a favorite artist, or in some very small way, I'm showing my support for that particular artist. I know they don't get any additional benefit by, you know, me buying multiple copies in back issue bins, but you know, it's just a small gesture in my own mind about supporting creative individuals that you love. The Ultimates Volume 3, #1 by Joe Madureira and Jeff Loeb. You know, I was so excited when Joe Madureira came back to Marvel after a long time off and he did this series. It was, I just can't help myself. Anytime I come across this book, I will buy it. You know, getting different variants, you know, different covers. Like, probably only paid full price for one of these books. The rest, again, it's a series that didn't get a ton of like love from, in terms of collectors and whatnot. So they're not necessarily really valuable books. They're just books that anytime I see it in the dollar bin, that nostalgic memory of him coming back and drawing this book and just seeing his take on the Ultimate Universe characters, the Avengers Ultimate versions, was so fun when they were coming out monthly and picking them up. Like, so anytime I come across a dollar bin back issue, I will buy it and have multiple copies. But those are kind of the main reasons that I kind of came up with for myself, and all the different categories kind of overlap with each other. The main overlapping factor is the underlying hope that these books will find an increased value down the road. The monetary investment I'm putting in, or you're putting in now, or when you bought multiple copies, will hopefully someday pay off. If and when you have to sell off your collection, or you know, you've passed away and your family has to deal with the thousands of pounds of paper that they don't really know anything about, but they can sell and get rid of, and get some sort of return on, you know, those books. Yeah, overall, like I said, it's all the categories I've listed here. Like I said, all kind of overlap, and when I'm buying multiple issues, they will, you know, this book might, you know, hit 2, 3, or 4 of the different reasons I buy multiple comics. Those are kind of my thoughts. What do you guys think? Why do you buy multiple copies if you do? What are your reasons? What reasons did I miss? I'm sure there's other reasons to buy multiple copies. Let me know in the comments below. What are the reasons you buy multiple copies? With that, I will kind of end this video. I wanted to say a huge thanks for watching. If you're still watching at this point, it's been kind of a longer video. So yeah, thanks for watching. And again, if you enjoyed this type of comic book related content, please give the video a thumbs up, hit the notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, comment below and let's talk comics. Bye.